After being reborn, the moment I saw a flower pot falling from the rooftop straight toward my wife, I didn't move. I just watched with a cold expression because I had already lived through this once before. In my previous life, I had risked my own life to push her out of the way. She survived, but the flower pot crushed my head instead. The impact left me with severe brain damage, destroyed my eyesight forever, and left me completely blind. The most shocking part was that the person who had thrown the flower pot wasn't a stranger. It was my wife Laura's first love, Ethan. When Laura found out the truth, she forgave him immediately. She promised to take care of me for the rest of my life and said she would become my eyes. I believed every word she said, but on my birthday, she insisted on taking me to the top of a mountain. As soon as we reached the peak, she quietly left me standing there alone. Blind and confused, I lost my balance, slipped off the cliff, and died instantly. While my body lay below, Laura stood on the mountaintop hugging Ethan. She laughed, kissed him, and looked down at me with complete contempt. She said I had never deserved to be with her, and that from that moment on, everything I owned would belong to her and Ethan. My soul drifted helplessly as I watched them get married, have children, and enjoy the life that should have been mine. Hatred consumed me, but then a miracle happened. In an instant, I returned to the exact day the flower pot accident was supposed to happen. Hurry up, the art exhibition is about to begin. Hearing those words, I froze for a moment, before realizing that Laura and I were standing outside the exhibition hall once again. I had truly been reborn. This time, however, I had no intention of saving her. I wanted to watch my painter wife face the same fate she had allowed me to suffer. If her first love took away her eyesight instead, what would she do? Seeing me remain silent, Laura frowned in annoyance and called my name again, but I didn't even look at her. Instead, I slowly raised my head toward the rooftop and saw the flower pot falling at full speed. A faint smile appeared on my face. The accident that had destroyed my previous life had finally arrived. The only difference was that this time, I wasn't the victim. What are you doing? Why are you just standing there? Hurry. Before she could finish speaking, a deafening crash echoed through the street, followed by a horrifying scream. Laura collapsed onto the ground covered in blood. Surprisingly, I didn't feel sadness. The only thing filling my heart was relief and satisfaction. I looked toward the rooftop and saw her so-called soulmate running away in panic. For a brief moment, I almost wanted to applaud him for finishing what he had started. But on the outside, I instantly put on a terrified expression, forced a couple of tears into my eyes, rushed to Laura's side and cried, "Laura, what happened to you? Please don't leave me. Say something." Then I turned toward the people around us and desperately shouted for someone to call an ambulance. With the help of the people around us, I carried Laura into the car and headed for the hospital. But instead of taking the fastest route, I deliberately chose the one with the worst traffic. I wanted every second to be wasted so that, in this life, Laura would suffer the same unbearable pain I had endured in my previous one. When we finally reached the hospital, the chief doctor examined her and said, "Your wife's condition is critical. She has suffered severe damage to the blood vessels in her brain. Our biggest concern is that she may lose her eyesight permanently." I immediately grabbed the doctor's arm and begged through tears, "Doctor, please save my wife. She's a famous painter. If she loses her vision, how will she ever live?" Inside, however, my heart was overflowing with joy. A week later, Laura finally regained consciousness. Her head was wrapped in thick bandages and her eyesight was gone forever. I stayed by her side day and night, taking care of her, but not because I loved her. She couldn't die yet. She had to stay alive long enough to witness how the man she sacrificed everything for would eventually destroy her. Only then would my revenge truly be complete. She trembled in panic and asked, "Why can't I see anything?" I lowered my head and replied with fake guilt, "It's all my fault. If I had reacted just a little faster, I could have saved you. I wish I had been the one who got hurt instead. You were such a talented painter, but now you've lost your eyesight and your face has been badly scarred. How are you supposed to live like this?" The moment she heard those words, Laura let out a heartbreaking scream and fainted once again. As soon as she stabilized, I arranged for her to be discharged from the hospital. There was no reason for me to waste another dollar on her treatment. After returning home, she locked herself inside her room from morning until night, crying endlessly. The pain from her injuries was unbearable. She stopped eating altogether and kept blaming me for failing to save her. One day, I brought her a bowl of porridge and gently tried to feed her myself, but she angrily slapped the bowl away. The boiling porridge splashed across her face, making her collapse to the floor in agony as she screamed in pain. Pretending to comfort her, I said, "Don't give up. You have to stay alive. I believe you'll overcome this and one day hold your paintbrush again." Then I told her inspiring stories about people who had become successful despite being blind or physically disabled. Instead of encouraging her, my words only pushed her deeper into despair. She cried out in anger, "Why? Why did this happen to me?" I answered calmly, "I wasn't the one who ruined your life. The person who did will be standing in front of you very soon. Just then, loud crying and desperate shouting came from outside the house. Laura, it's me. Please forgive me. I walked to the front door and found Ethan kneeling on the ground. In my previous life, after I'd lost my eyesight, he and Laura had shamelessly embraced each other right in front of me. In my previous life, they had completely destroyed me. I suffered an unbearable pain, yet neither of them gave me even a single chance to recover. In the end, I fell off a cliff and died. Before leaving, Ethan had proudly told Laura, "What do you think of my plan? He'll die in a way that won't leave the police suspicious of us at all." What he never imagined was that I would be given a second chance. Now that same Ethan was kneeling outside my front door, smashing his forehead against the ground, crying and begging for forgiveness. The moment I opened the door, he pushed past me and rushed straight to Laura. "Laura, how are you?" She replied weakly, "Ethan, you promised you'd never leave me, right?" Without the slightest hesitation, he answered, "Never. Just say yes once and I'll stay with you forever." Just like in my previous life, the two of them completely forgot I was even standing there. What a tragic love story. After a moment, Ethan stood up beside her and said, "Laura, I'm sorry. I never meant to drop the flower pot on you. I only wanted to teach Daniel a lesson. You'll forgive me, won't you?" In my previous life, Laura had done everything she could to win Ethan's heart. After countless efforts, they finally became a couple, but their relationship lasted barely 2 months before Ethan suddenly married a wealthy woman. Left with no choice, Laura eventually married me. We had been married for 10 years. During all those years, she stayed home painting while earning nothing herself. Back then, she wasn't famous, and no one appreciated her artwork. I never complained. I worked day and night, spent my entire salary on our family, and even paid for lessons from renowned art teachers so she could improve her skills without worrying about money. I never even bought new clothes for myself. Eventually, all that sacrifice paid off. Laura's paintings became popular, her reputation spread throughout the art world, and our financial situation completely changed. Together, we started a company. Every share was registered under her name, while I handled all of the business operations. I stayed busy managing everything so she could focus entirely on creating new artwork without a single worry. Thanks to my hard work, she accumulated more wealth than she could ever spend. She used to smile and tell me, "Honey, everything I have belongs to you and to our future child. Don't worry about these small things." I believed her. I truly thought she would cherish the more than 10 years of love and sacrifice I had given her and put our family above everything else. But I was wrong. From the very beginning, her heart had never belonged to me. For Ethan, she watched me suffer right before her eyes and never tried to save me. In the end, all my years of sincere love and devotion brought me nothing except betrayal and a painful death. Looking at the two of them together again, the only emotions left inside me were hatred and regret. Ethan gently held her hand and said, "Forget everything that happened. You're already worth millions now. I'll give you whatever kind of life you want." Everything Laura owned, her wealth, her fame, and the luxurious life she enjoyed, existed only because I had spent years standing in front of every hardship as her shield. Every success she achieved had been bought with my sacrifices, my suffering, and even my blood. I looked at her and asked, "Laura, are you saying you want to divorce me?" Ethan quickly interrupted, pretending to be innocent. "I'm sorry, Mr. Daniel. I never intended for that. Just being able to see Laura again is enough for me. I don't want to destroy your marriage." But I knew exactly what kind of man he really was. Ethan was a coward and an opportunist. When his wealthy wife stopped being useful to him, he immediately wanted a divorce. After she refused, he silently endured years of abuse until she was finally imprisoned for illegal activities. Only then was he free to leave the marriage, and the very first thing he did was come back to Laura. His intentions were so obvious that his entire scheme looked like an open book to me. I stared at him coldly. "You ruined my wife's life, and now you expect me to forgive you?" Before Ethan could answer, Laura spoke instead. "Daniel, Ethan already knows he made a mistake. I've forgiven him, so why can't you?" I calmly replied, "I'm sorry, but this case has already become a major topic online. If the criminal receives no punishment, others will think they can do the same thing without consequences. That's why I've already filed a lawsuit against Ethan. Now prepare yourself for prison." Ethan's face turned pale. Laura immediately shouted, "Withdraw the case!" I shook my head. "Impossible!" Her expression turned ice cold. "If you don't withdraw it, I'll divorce you right now. I'll give you half of our property. That'll be more than enough for the rest of your life. But you must drop the charges." Hearing those words, I almost laughed. Half? She still thought she could buy me off. What I wanted wasn't half of our fortune anymore. I wanted everything. And I wanted both of them to pay for everything they had done to me. The room instantly fell silent. Ethan nervously leaned toward Laura and whispered something into her ear. She let out a quiet sigh and stopped talking. A moment later, Ethan suddenly knelt in front of me. "Mr. Daniel, tell me what I have to do for you to forgive me. Even if I spend the rest of my life in prison, I can't change what's already happened. Besides, the victim herself has already forgiven me. Why won't you let this go?" Without saying another word, I stepped forward and slapped him across the face with all my strength. The impact sent him stumbling backward before he crashed onto the floor. Holding his swollen cheek, he screamed in pain. I stared down at him and said coldly, Laura is seriously injured, and her emotions are unstable. If she says something unreasonable, I can understand that. But you destroyed her entire future. I've spent more than 10 years beside her. I endured every hardship and every struggle with her. Just when she finally became successful and famous, you took away the one thing she treasured most, her eyesight. Hearing the commotion, Laura desperately tried to help Ethan up, but in her panic she lost her balance and fell beside him. Ethan immediately reached out to support her, and the two of them clung to each other like a loving couple who had shared a lifetime together. Looking straight at me, Ethan slowly said, Mr. Daniel, I'm completely sober now. Ethan looked at me and said, I'm completely serious. Tell me what you want in exchange for withdrawing the lawsuit. Whatever your condition is, I'll accept it. I answered calmly, I want the entire company and every asset registered under your name. Ethan immediately frowned. The company's shares are all under Laura's name. What difference does my opinion even make? I looked him straight in the eyes and asked, then answer me this. If Laura becomes blind, bankrupt, and loses everything, will you still stay with her? Without hesitation, he replied, Of course, I'll never leave Laura. I quietly pulled out a document and handed it to him. If that's true, then sign this agreement first, and I'll withdraw the case. The moment he read it, his face darkened. You want 80% of the company's shares? In the next second, he tore the agreement into pieces without the slightest hesitation. I shrugged and said, That's your choice. If you won't sign, then get ready for prison. Wait! He suddenly shouted. You're being far too greedy. How can you demand so much? At that moment, he wasn't even trying to hide his true intentions anymore. The way he spoke made it sound as if he were Laura's real husband instead of me. I stared at him coldly. Ethan, since when did you earn the right to interfere in my marriage? Who gave you the authority to make decisions for my wife? Laura immediately defended him. You've gone too far. How dare you threaten Ethan like this? He's right. You're being unbelievably greedy. I'll never sign that agreement. I nodded without arguing. Fine. Then the decision is entirely yours. I'll give you half a day. Either transfer my shares to me, or watch your beloved man go to prison. The choice is yours. After saying that, I picked up my bag and walked out, intentionally giving the two of them time to talk alone. In my previous life, they had already been secretly involved with each other long before everything fell apart. Because of Laura's public image in our marriage, she never dared to openly betray me. She kept promising Ethan that she would divorce me as soon as possible, but they delayed it again and again. Eventually, Ethan lost his patience. In a fit of rage, he threw the flower pot at both of us, hoping to destroy our lives with a single attack. I knew the truth better than anyone. He had never loved Laura. The only thing he wanted was her money. When he couldn't get it, he was even willing to kill. After I lost my eyesight in my previous life, the two of them stopped hiding their relationship and did whatever they wanted. Just as I expected, less than 10 minutes after I left the house, the CCTV cameras recorded the two of them embracing each other. I switched off my phone and handed every piece of evidence to my lawyer. Then I returned to my rented apartment and spent an entire week quietly resting. During that week, Ethan devoted himself to taking care of Laura day and night. They behaved exactly like a newly married couple completely lost in each other. Meanwhile, Laura lived in constant fear of losing him. I already knew why. Just like me, she had also been reborn. She believed Ethan was the man destined to stay by her side forever. Now that she was blind, she feared that the greatest love of her life would eventually abandon her. A week later, I finally returned to the company. The moment I opened the meeting room door, I saw Ethan and Laura sitting confidently at the head of the table. As soon as Ethan noticed me, he smirked and announced, I'm now Ms. Laura's secretary, and I have some news for you. You're fired. Every shareholder looked around in shock. They all knew Laura had returned, but no one expected such a dramatic scene the moment I walked into the office. I simply smiled and calmly headed toward my seat. Ethan immediately shouted, Didn't you hear me? You've been fired. Get out. Laura then spoke in a cold voice. Daniel, I want a divorce. Leave the company right now. I glanced at Ethan before replying with a sarcastic smile. Mr. Ethan, it seems my wife can't even go to the bathroom without your assistance. You must have been working very hard lately. The shareholders instantly lowered their heads to hide their laughter. Ethan's face turned red with anger before going completely pale. What are you so proud of? He snapped. Even your own wife has abandoned you, yet you still have the nerve to mock me? I smiled and answered, Looks like the two of you have been enjoying your happy little life so much that you've forgotten something important. Have you already forgotten about withdrawing the lawsuit? The moment those words left my mouth, Ethan's expression completely changed. During the past week, all he had cared about was keeping Laura by his side. Since every asset in my family had been placed under her name, he believed that once he got everything, he would never have to worry about money again for the rest of his life. Feeling humiliated, Laura immediately ordered every shareholder to leave the meeting room. Once everyone was gone, Ethan gently handed her a glass of water and said affectionately, "Laura, drink some water. Your lips are getting dry." She smiled softly. "Thank you, Ethan. You've worked so hard for me." He looked at her with sincere eyes and replied, "For you, I'd do anything." I watched the two of them in silence before saying coldly, "Was I really kept here just to watch this disgusting little romance?" Don't forget, Laura and I are still legally married. Ethan laughed with complete disdain. The one who isn't loved is always the real outsider. Daniel, you're the one who should leave now. Then he proudly added, "Besides, I'm Laura's secretary now. I have a respectable job. If you withdraw the lawsuit, I'll even pay you." I looked at him without changing my expression. "I won't accept a single dollar less than $1 billion. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you out of your mind? Laura doesn't even own that much money in total." I calmly replied, "Then prepare yourself for prison. I don't need your money anyway." Ethan immediately turned toward Laura in panic. "Laura, look at him." She gently calmed him down before facing me. "Daniel, I'm willing to transfer company shares to your name, but only 40%. Sign the settlement agreement, and we'll end this here." Laura looked at me and said, "Sign the divorce papers as well so we can finish all the legal formalities." I already knew they would never willingly hand over such a huge amount of money, but during the past week I had prepared an even better plan. As soon as the settlement was signed, I agreed to withdraw my lawsuit. Ethan still looked unwilling, his face filled with frustration. Laura gently comforted him. "As long as I can be with you and divorce Daniel as soon as possible, this small loss doesn't matter." Hearing that finally lifted Ethan's mood. Smiling proudly, he joked, "Then you'd better give me 8 children." I had absolutely no interest in listening to their sweet little romance, so I turned around and walked back to my office. I now owned 40% of the company. It would become the first piece of capital for my new beginning. While I was packing my belongings, Ethan walked into my office with a smug smile. "Daniel, you never expected this, did you? Even after I caused Laura such a terrible injury, she still forgave me. Doesn't that prove how deeply she loves me? Who would have thought such a terrible accident would end up benefiting me? You have 1 hour to pack your things. Hurry up and never appear in front of my wife again, or you'll regret it." Not long after he left, every senior executive in the company gathered inside my office. "Mr. Daniel, if you're leaving, we're leaving too. We'll follow you wherever you go." Another executive nodded firmly. "This entire company was built with your blood, sweat, and hard work. We've witnessed everything with our own eyes. Those 2 traitors are stealing everything you've built, and now they're throwing you out. We refuse to accept that." Looking at the honesty and loyalty in their eyes, I genuinely felt the hope of starting over. I smiled and said, "Thank you, everyone, but not yet. For now, none of you should resign." Just as I expected, Laura and Ethan quickly became the hottest topic on social media. Since Laura was already a famous artist, reporters immediately surrounded her for interviews. Wearing a pitiful expression, she tearfully said, "I loved my ex-husband Daniel with all my heart. I was even willing to die for him. But after I was injured, he cruelly abandoned me and started seeing another woman. He was the one who destroyed my relationship with Ethan in the first place. Now Ethan is the only person taking care of me every single day. My only regret is that I ever married Daniel. I'm grateful that God gave Ethan a second chance to come back into my life." Her performance instantly fooled the public. Social media exploded overnight. The story went viral, and countless people praised Ethan as not only a handsome man, but also someone with a kind and noble heart. Laura's company's stock price surged, allowing the two of them to make an enormous profit. Afterward, Ethan deliberately sent me photos of the expensive luxury gifts Laura had bought for him. Then he called me with a mocking laugh. "Daniel, have you finally seen Laura's true choice?" A few days later, Ethan called again with a smug laugh. "Looks like fate has chosen me. Our company's stock has hit the upper circuit. Just sit back and watch your 40% stake grow." I carefully looked through the photos he had sent. Some of the luxury gifts were genuine, while others were obvious fakes. I couldn't help laughing. Irritated, Ethan snapped, "What's so funny?" I smiled and replied, "The one who's going to cry is you. If Laura truly loves you that much, why did she only give you a few expensive gifts? She treated you like a beggar by throwing a handful of luxury items your way. If you were really the most important person in her life, she would have given you a luxury car, a mansion, or even company shares. Did she give you any of those?" The moment he heard that, Ethan fell completely silent before angrily hanging up the phone. I knew I had successfully planted the first crack in their relationship. They enjoyed a few months of happiness, but now it was finally time for both of them to experience what it felt like to lose everything. After that call, the two of them became noticeably quieter. They stopped showing off their romance on social media, and rumors soon spread that a Cold War had begun between them. After more than 10 years of marriage and the memories of my previous life, I understood Laura better than anyone. Above all else, she always cared about herself. She would never transfer all of her wealth to Ethan because the moment she did, he would throw her away without hesitation. Instead, she planned to keep tempting him with money, so he would remain loyal and never leave her. Meanwhile, my new company officially opened for business. Most of the employees who had stayed behind at Laura's company were secretly loyal to me, and before long, I had become her biggest competitor. It didn't take long for Laura to realize something was wrong. Furious, she called me and shouted, "Daniel, you stole one of my biggest business deals." I calmly replied, "Miss Laura, don't forget that we're still legally husband and wife. Our divorce cooling off period hasn't ended yet. What's mine is technically yours too, so why are you so upset?" Then I added, "Let's meet outside the Civil Affairs Bureau in 3 days." 3 days later, our divorce finally became official. The moment I received the divorce certificate, it felt as though a massive weight had been lifted from my shoulders. After that, I showed no mercy. One by one, I brought Laura's biggest clients over to my new company. Even many of her longtime employees gradually chose to join me instead. By the time Laura realized what was happening, it was already far too late. In anger, she fired employee after employee, but every one of them collected their full compensation and immediately accepted positions at my company. Taking advantage of the situation, I contacted the media and revealed the entire truth about the old flower pot incident, including how Ethan had thrown the object from the rooftop, how they pressured me to withdraw the lawsuit, and how the two of them had been having an affair long before our divorce was finalized. The story spread across the internet like wildfire. Public opinion turned against them overnight, and Laura's company quickly found itself on the edge of bankruptcy. Then, on the very day I signed the biggest business deal of my new career, Laura suddenly came looking for me. A few days later, Laura came to my office. Her assistant helped guide her inside because she could no longer see. The arrogance she once carried was completely gone. I smiled politely and said, "Welcome, Miss Laura. What brings you to my office today? Didn't your beloved partner come with you?" My words struck her like a knife. Her expression instantly darkened. Through gritted teeth, she said, "Ethan betrayed me. After I lost my eyesight, he secretly used my phone to transfer money into his own account. He stole my business resources, took my contracts, and ran away with nearly $120,000. I calmly replied, "Ms. Laura, isn't your money supposed to be Mr. Ethan's money too? Why worry so much about who owns what?" She lowered her head and said helplessly, "But he won't even marry me." Silence filled the room for a few moments before she looked toward my voice and quietly asked, Can we get married again?" For a second, I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I had no idea where she found the courage to ask such a shameless question. She continued, "You always took care of me. The best food, the best clothes, everything good. You always saved it for me. You still love me, don't you? I know everything that happened before was my fault. Ethan only cared about my money. Now I finally understand that you're the only man who ever truly loved me." I immediately cut her off. "That's enough. If this is the only reason you came here today, then please leave." My cold attitude finally broke her. Tears streamed down her sightless eyes as she whispered, "I know you're a kind person. Can you really watch me lose everything and end up on the streets? Please, give me 1 or 2 of your clients so I can somehow save my company." I smiled faintly. "Ms. Laura, that's not difficult at all. I'm hosting a business dinner tonight. Make sure you come." Hearing that, confidence immediately returned to her face. She truly believed that, just like in my previous life, I still couldn't stop loving her. That evening, by coincidence, we met outside the elevator. I stepped forward and politely said, "Ms. Laura, let me help you." The moment she heard those words, her confidence grew even stronger. As we walked down the hallway, we passed a guest room with the door slightly open. Voices drifted out from inside. Ethan was speaking. "That woman is unbelievably stingy. She doesn't even want to spend money on me. I barely managed to squeeze some cash out of her, but from now on, I'm done with her. Just seeing her face makes me sick." The woman sitting beside him burst into laughter. "Good. From now on, you're all mine. We'll take Laura's money, disappear somewhere far away, and start a brand new life together." Standing outside the door, Laura's entire body began trembling with rage. In the next instant, she slammed the door open and charged straight at Ethan. He looked at her with a cold smile and sneered, "I booked this entire floor. No matter how loudly you scream, nobody is coming to save you." Then, glaring at her with pure hatred, he shouted, "Today, I'm finally going to teach you a lesson. You lived off my lies, used me whenever it benefited you, and thought you could control me forever?" Ethan screamed in pain as Laura completely lost control. "You cheated on me, humiliated me, and even tried to get me killed. I never should have asked Daniel to forgive you. You deserve to rot in prison." His cries echoed throughout the room, but Laura showed no mercy. She continued beating him with all her strength. Meanwhile, the woman who had been inside with Ethan quietly walked out and approached me with a smile. "Boss, did everything go according to plan today?" I nodded in satisfaction. Perfect. You did an excellent job. You'll get a promotion and a generous bonus. She thanked me and walked away. Everything that had happened tonight had been carefully arranged by me from the very beginning. Although Laura was blind, Ethan was far too weak to fight back against someone consumed by rage. He had no way to defend himself. Eventually, he collapsed to his knees, grabbed Laura's legs, and begged desperately, "Please, stop! Laura, I'm begging you, please let me go." His pleas only made her even angrier. She kicked and punched him again and again until he curled up on the floor, clutching his stomach in agony. Blood slowly spread beneath his body. Watching the scene unfold, I couldn't help remembering my previous life. Back then, I had also knelt before the two of them, begging for mercy while they watched me suffer without the slightest hint of compassion. Now, for the first time, Ethan was finally experiencing that same helpless despair. Before things went too far, the hotel's security guards rushed upstairs and immediately called an ambulance. I never intended to let Ethan die. In fact, I was the one who had secretly called the guards. I wanted him to stay alive so he could spend the rest of his life paying for everything he had done. By the time the paramedics carried him out on a stretcher, he was barely conscious. Calmly, I turned back toward the conference room and said, "Shall we continue our business discussion?" I glanced at Laura. She sat there silently, expressionless, as though nothing had happened. Just then, someone entered and announced, "Ms. Laura, after what happened today, all of our partner companies have been informed. They've decided to postpone today's meeting. We'll discuss everything another time." Leaving Laura alone in the hotel, I returned home, poured myself a glass of red wine, and quietly waited for the rest of the show to unfold. Ethan's injuries were so severe that he remained hospitalized for quite some time, yet not a single person stayed by his bedside. After being discharged, he still refused to change. Once again, he began chasing wealthy and influential women, hoping to manipulate them for money. This time, however, no one paid him any attention, no matter how charming he tried to be. Soon he discovered the reason. Laura had spread the news everywhere that Ethan was nothing more than a con artist who targeted rich women, stole their money, and destroyed their relationships. That single rumor completely ruined his reputation. Every opportunity disappeared overnight, and the little savings he had left slowly dwindled until almost nothing remained. Laura's company soon entered bankruptcy proceedings. Every single day she came looking for me, calling me nonstop and refusing to give up. One day she pleaded, "Don't believe anything Ethan says. I'm the one who's truly meant to be with you. Please believe what I'm about to tell you. I've been reborn. In our previous life, we were husband and wife. We loved each other deeply. We had a son and a daughter, and when we grew old, our children took care of us until the very end. Ethan filled your head with countless lies about me, but none of them were true. In this life, I became blind and my mind wasn't clear. That's why I fell for his lies and foolishly divorced you. Let's get married again. We'll have a son and a daughter just like before, and we'll live the happy life we once had. You've never chosen another woman all this time, which means you've still been waiting for me." Before I could answer, someone suddenly took the phone from my hand. The woman standing beside me spoke in a cold, intimidating voice. "If you ever dare bother my husband again, I'll make your life even worse than blindness." Laura froze in fear, unable to say another word, and immediately hung up. I smiled and wrapped my arms around the woman beside me. After a brief silence, she looked up at me with a warm smile. "You're mine now. I've waited so many years to be with you. I still can't believe you once threw your heart away for a woman like her. But now, I've finally made you completely mine." She had been my childhood friend all along. She had loved me since we were young, yet I had never understood her feelings. Only after receiving a second chance at life did I finally realize who had truly loved me from the very beginning. Not long afterward, we got married. On the day of our wedding, Laura insisted on attending the ceremony. But while she was on her way, Ethan's truck suddenly lost its brakes and sped directly toward her. Because Laura was blind, she never saw the truck coming and had no chance to escape. A second later, the truck slammed into her, killing her instantly. Looking down at her lifeless body, Ethan burst into uncontrollable laughter. "Laura, this is the price of everything you've done. We made countless plans together, but neither of us ever imagined we'd end up like this." Even as the police arrested him, he kept laughing like a madman. By then, he had completely lost his sanity. When I later heard what had happened, I was quietly enjoying a candlelight dinner with my wife. To me, it was simply one more piece of good news. In the end, the two of them destroyed each other exactly as they had once tried to destroy me. Eventually, every asset Laura had owned returned to me. Without my support, my trust, and the years of hard work I poured into her success, she would never have reached the heights she once enjoyed. That wealth had always belonged to me. And now, at last, my truly beautiful new life was finally beginning.